The Mac and Pete Project.
Pan down from the twin suns of Tatooine, we are now close on the mouth of the Sarlacc pit. After a beat, the gloved Mandalorian armor gauntlet of Boba Fett grabs onto the sand outside the Sarlacc pit, and the feared bounty hunter pulls himself from the maw of the sand beast. He survived his fall during the battle at Jabba's palace ship. Then do a hard cut.
All right, it's brand new year, and we are back with the Mac and Pete Project after a several-month hiatus. How you doing, Mac?
Wonderful, Pete. How about you, buddy?
Doing excellent, and we got a nice surprise this Christmas from Jon Favreau called the Book of Boba Fett. And,
a pleasant surprise for everyone, I think.
And we're 3 episodes in. And it has been a fun ride so far. And just to let everyone know, this is probably going to be a spoiler talk, full of spoilers. So if you haven't watched it yet, go check it out before you see our thoughts. And we're going to discuss the first 3 chapters of this series.
Mm-hmm.
So, you want to start us off? Or?
Sure. So, just to give a brief overview, they rely heavily on flashbacks to get us caught up on where the character of Boba Fett is at this current juncture. So, of course, this is after the events of Return of the Jedi.
So,
and
5 years after, like Mandalorian. Like, Mandalorian Season 1, these flashbacks probably...
I would assume that as well. So,
well, technically, it's before Season 1, and it'll at the end of the flashbacks
coincide.
Yeah.
So, and just to discuss a little bit about the flashbacks, it was great because opening scene, you get something very special. You get Jabba's palace, and then you go and you see Boba sitting in the bacta tank, and then that's when we go into the flashbacks. And the flashbacks, you get it. Can you say Easter Egg City, Batman? It was Camino. It was Slave One, which I think they renamed the Fire Spree. You see Jango Fett's helmet when he was decapitated in Episode 2, Clone Wars. No, Attack of the Clones, it was called. In Geonosis. So you see a lot of stuff there, and you're building to the point on, well, how did he get out of the Sarlacc pit? And once we see the events of him getting out of the Sarlacc pit, we see a couple more Easter eggs. We see a stormtrooper stuck in there. Stormtrooper's dead, but his oxygen tank is still operational.
So I like to think that stormtrooper was one of them that was on patrol in Episode 4, searching for the droids.
Someone was in the pod. The tracks go off in this direction. Look, sir, droids.
And just fell in.
I would assume that as well, because you have to realize that there was not a real presence there except when to look for the droids. And then there wasn't like one chilling there on, and got, so yeah, it was another little Easter egg. And of course, Boba went and got his tank and started, how am I going to get out of here? Oh, wait, my flamethrower.
The stormtrooper brings up a small little discussion about the geography of
Tatooine. Yeah.
We know Luke grew outside of Mos Eisley.
Mos Eisley Spaceport. You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
And this is supposed to take place near Mos Espa.
I believe so. I think Jabba's palace is closer to Mos Espa because he was there for the pod race in Episode 1. So I'm sure that was a quick travel. So I always assumed that Jabba's palace from like Return of the Jedi was like close to Mos Espa, but I guess that's a ridiculous assumption because it's a huge planet.
True.
But from Season 2 of The Mandalorian, we find out from Cobb Vanth, Danny Cordray from The Office / Timothy Oliphant.
There he is.
Oh, no, that's a male model.
No, that's him. Good to see you guys. Nice to meet you.
Danny? Nothing. Nope. That just...
There's like 3 major settlements of Tatooine. Mos Espa, Mos Eisley, and whichever one Cobb Vanth lived at. I forget the name of that one.
Yeah, I don't remember the name either.
And then, of course, everything in between that's sparsely populated, probably by Tuskens.
Which is called the Dune Sea. So you have, in the Dune Sea, you have the Jawas cruising around in their big tank-looking things. And then you have the Sand People who go around on the funny-looking elephants with the horns.
Use a more politically correct term, sir. They are Tuskens.
Tuskens.
Tusken Raiders, not Sand People. That is so derogatory, sir.
That's terrible.
They are a people rich of culture.
A rich tribal culture that you get to find out a little bit more about in the Book of Fett.
From this series, we find out that Boba Fett's helmet is pressurized, because when we hear him taking it on and off, you can hear the pressurization. Yeah. And then also when he was in the Sarlacc pit, you see he steals the respirator from the Stormtrooper.
From the Stormtrooper.
Failed or whatever. So.
And of course, I would also make that assumption while in the Sarlacc, the ability to breathe is very null, maybe like being in top of a high elevated mountain range, something like that, or little to no oxygen. So that would probably be why he needs the oxygen first. One could also assume that he needs it for the flamethrower. But, of course, when you hear him click and go, I would assume that it was for him, not for the flamethrower.
Yeah.
So
he burns his way out of the beast and then climbs through the sand. And I think we have to assume this is probably the same day of the battle at the sail barge, maybe hours later.
Maybe a few hours later, yeah, because you don't see or hear them going off or anything. And the other thing is, if that storm,
also a big sandstorm during their departure in a deleted scene, so that sandstorm is nowhere to be seen. If we want to count that as canon,
we could. The other thing that we have to think about is, let's say it has to be after Return of the Jedi, but that's if you're in the digestive tract of the Sarlacc. Remember, Jabba did the C-3PO said that it takes like 1,000 years to be digested.
In his belly, you will find a new definition of pain and suffering as you are slowly digested over 1,000 years.
So that can also be why none of the armor of the Stormtrooper has been degraded.
Right. Exactly.
So that's something, little things like that you remember that I've found interesting in that little scene there. But now we've climbed out and we've finally we know how Boba Fett has escaped.
So he's exhausted, just laying there, and during nightfall, the Jawas come and just pick him clean and steal all.
Yeah, as Jawas do. They know a good bargain when you get one. Whether they're these aren't the droids you're looking for, or some Mando armor.
Essentially, at that point, after the Jawas leave, he doesn't wake up until the Tuskens are over.
Yeah, the Tuskens find him, and of course they tie him up, and now he's sitting there with the same species that Guido is. I forget what they are. I'm not up on my Rodian. And there was also one of their dogs sitting there by the fire.
So they basically have him captured at this point.
They're starting to dig, both of them, for the water pods.
Right. So it's like maybe they were just using them as slave labor.
Yeah, are they slave labor, or they're miners? We need water.
It was also interesting to see that they let the youth of the tribe take them out and you're going to make them go dig for water. So I don't know if it's like a rite of passage for him.
It could be. And then, of course, once they're doing that, we see this massive sleeping lizard creature. Correct?
That was like I got like the Rock vibes from like the Mummy from that thing.
When he was the scorpion, like the half
Yeah,
scorpion, half man.
the best CGI from the late '90s / early 2000s. But yeah, can we talk about the makeup for Boba Fett in the desert? Like he looks worse than Darth Vader mask.
You were right about me.
He looks well. I like that they stayed very lore. They stayed very canon-esque. They stayed around the same what you would probably look like. But
When I say he looks horrible, the makeup's great. I mean, he
no,
just
I know what you. I know.
Yeah.
I know what you meant. I just meant that they stayed like when Luke takes Anakin's mask off when he's Darth Vader, and you see it's the same kind of he's messed up. He's messed up bad. Just like when he's all burnt when Obi-Wan's fighting in Revenge of the Sith. It's the same type of. He looks bad. He looks really bad. And you're right. The makeup was spot on.
And I guess the battle with that sand creature, the Rhodian dies, but Boba Fett's able to use his chains to choke it to death, essentially. And
Yeah.
they're able to bring back the head of it as a trophy, and the kid comes back as a hero. And then they have a little bit more respect for Boba because it's like, oh, hey, he could have let our youngling die, but he chose to save him.
Yeah, this is the point where I think that if he was a prisoner, if he was slave labor, he's now turned into not that as much. He's getting privileges. He's getting freedoms bestowed upon him. I wouldn't say he's a member of the tribe yet, but I think that that's at this point he's working towards that, or he at least. And because we know Boba Fett's a survivor, I think we saw this person who was always a survivor now go into the, hey, this place is something more.
Right.
Like that's where we see this point in the character. And if we stay on the flashback vein, going into episode 2 with the flashbacks, you have him gaining those privileges and freedoms. And then this is when we see the train.
It was like during his initial training with the gaffy stick.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and of course, we know that from Mandalorian, we're like, that looks like something the Tusken Raiders use.
Right.
So during this training process, we see a train, a speeder train, I guess is the best description.
Hypertrain, whatever.
Hypertrain. Probably made by the,
It's like, I never saw the Lone Ranger movie with Johnny Depp, but apparently there's a train with a mounted machine gun on it to mow down the native savages.
As soon as I saw it, I thought this was a Gunsmoke bonanza. It was the 60s, cowboy television show.
Yeah, you're right. Natives.
The Wild West. Yes.
Gotta keep it safe.
So this is the point where.
And they every time the train goes by, they lose a bantha. They lose several members of the tribe. It is just horrific.
And that's something that doesn't make sense to me because they didn't attack the train.
Right.
This is an unprovoked attack from the train. The train's just cruising along on a bantha. There's no way that you're going to catch this train. So I'm not sure why, except for fun, that you're shooting the Tusken Raiders and their tribe.
And Boba decides he's not going to put up with this. So he goes to the closest settlement. I guess there's a fight going on at the bar, and he settles it, and he steals all their speeders for the guys he just beat up. And I think we also want to point out this time that I don't think it's in that scene. It might have been in the episode 1 when he's being dragged by the bantha, and they're going past a settlement that's been torched. There's this gang that's been going around, and they're putting their mark on it. And
This is true. So this is
we
this
don't
is the first time.
Yeah, this is the first time we see it. So we don't know who that party is yet. And
Correct. But now
anyway, he brings back 3 or 4 speeders,
Mhm.
and he offers them a gift to the chief, and they immediately start taking it apart.
Whoa, stop! No! Stop! Oh, these are mine! These are mine! Stop!
Which is no, don't do that.
And it's like,
Yeah.
this is how we're gonna defeat the train. And then the next 20 minutes we get Boba Fett's driver's education.
Yeah, the driver ed montage.
And it's great because it's like, a lazy movie would have been like, oh, they can learn how to use a speeder within a scene or two of movie time. And it's like, no, it's like we actually were able to teach them throttle and steering and getting them up to speed pretty quick because they're a people without machines.
Right. And the jumping from speeder to speeder. When they opened the
didn't
scene,
do it correctly the first time. He fell
no,
off.
he had to keep going and going. But what I did love is it reminded me of Luke in the speeder on Endor when he hit and they shot back. That was I was laughing my butt off when I saw that. That was fantastic. But I did like the montage.
He gave everyone in the tribe a job, even the kid. He's like,
Mhm.
oh, you got to use this reflective metal to signal all the other members of the tribe that are along the track that doesn't exist,
Yeah.
But they know the path of the train. And we just get this epic train robbery, is what I want to call it, because that's
That's what it is.
or a hijacking, I guess.
And it goes well, very well. I mean, of course, they lost some raiders along the way, but overall,
so definitely the best action scene of the show so far.
So far, yes.
And I love the droid engineer in the locomotive. Just gives up. And once the train's been derailed, we find out it's the Pike Syndicate that's behind the whole thing. And
Correct.
I think this is their first time in live action. They've appeared.
They've been in cartoons, yes.
And I think Darth Maul's Crimson Dawn crime syndicate has dealings with them as well. And
Yes.
I think we'll get more of that in the Obi-Wan show if Darth Maul shows up. But we'll see. But essentially, you find out the Pikes are like, they gave some kind of dumb excuse. They're like, oh, we were just protecting our trade route. And it's like, and of course, it's like some tribes of Tuskens are violent and just resorted to it automatically. But
Yeah,
this tribe, yeah. And Boba's speech here is just so great. He's like, this Dune Sea belongs to the ancestral claims of the Tusken Raiders, and if you will never pass through here again without paying a toll.
Period.
For them to pay for access to the land, and doesn't even give them a ride back to Anchorhead. He says, if you start walking that way, you'll get there by sunset.
We'll lead you to Anchorhead by sunset if you leave now.
But we'll be killed.
You now travel under the protection of the Tuskens. No harm will come of you.
Yeah, you won't die. Here's some water.
And they're an amphibious species, so it's like you can tell they're like,
Yeah, they're nervous at this point.
and you can see how much water they had on. They like devoted a whole entire car to their train to water when the train is mostly hauling spice.
Right, and they bust this out, and you see all the Tuskens drinking from it, grabbing. I can just imagine they're like,
They don't even offer to give them their water. They're like, oh no, you're gonna take the black melons.
Yeah, here, enjoy. Don't worry about the bitter taste. But that scene, it reminded me of Robin Hood Men in Tights, where Little John's standing on this bridge and Robin's supposed to pass this. I mean, literally. And Dave Chappelle's like, Robin, it ain't that big of a deal. I'm on the West Bank. I'm on the East Bank. And as soon as I heard that, I just flashed back to Robin Hood Men in Tights. Got to pay the toll. Pay the toll.
And
But anyway, that was a good scene. Very good scene.
Yeah, and then just the great ending for this episode is the chief is very grateful for everything that Boba's done. Offers him a gift, and it turns out to be a lizard, and he's like appreciative of it.
Oh,
this is what I'm going to do with this. And then we got some Wrath of Khan stuff going on.
Well, the best part about that was he apologizes for eating it. He thinks he swallowed it. He goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. I think I swallowed it." And then, of course, it's like we have this vision quest that happens. A walkabout.
Psychotropic drug.
Yeah, it's just I don't know if it's once he's on your brain, he releases these toxins, or it's some type of food poisoning. But he's now having this peyote type trip from the gecko that he swallowed.
He basically wanders out in the desert in a daze and finds like one of the remaining trees left on Tatooine, because we also find out in the show that Tatooine was once covered in oceans, but centuries ago they dried up and the Tuscans were left to wander the Dune Sea, which is funny because it's like now it makes sense of why it's called a sea.
Yeah, because it probably was an ocean at some point.
And we're getting thematic elements to Boba's background because he was born in water, Camino, and he's dried up, and he's basically having the same story arc as Tatooine, and he's been pushed down and taken advantage of throughout his career, and he's now decided he's helping people and wants to make it fair for what he can for people who deserve it. And this is probably what is eventually, in an episode flashback we haven't seen yet, is going to drive him to take the throne of Jabba from Bib Fortuna.
And see, this is something that's interesting when you look at the dichotomy of characters, because Boba Fett and Jango Fett, it's not his son. He's a clone. He's an unaltered clone of Jango Fett. So this plays to the Star Trek V. If I would have turned right instead of turned left, tapestry. When you pull a thread out, making different choices. So this would mean that Jango did have the potential to do something that was honorable, respectful, reasonable, the right and wrong. But whatever decisions that he had made to be a survivor, because that's pretty much where we saw Boba Fett. Boba Fett was a survivor after seeing him as a boy in Attack of the Clones.
Let's be honest. He kind of sucked as a bounty hunter.
Yeah, I mean, unless at some point he was like the greatest bounty hunter, and the only one he never got was Han Solo.
And everyone out there, I don't want to see comments saying, "Well, in the comics or in the novels," I'm like, it didn't happen on film. We don't know how cool Boba Fett is. Because
right. So I would love to. He was
cool because he wore badass armor, but it's like on film he was like very disappointing.
Right. Now I understand because he looked cool in armor, he's mysterious. Okay. This shows the perfect opportunity to, and then maybe you're right, you're getting to the driving force of why he wanted to be that. Maybe Han Solo was the only one that got away. And if that's the case, that would build more to the character's veracity at where he's going now.
And also to point out, this is the first time Boba Fett has a character.
Correct. He's not just, hey, this guy looks cool. He's a trigger. He's a.
And to think about it, the only thing he did in Empire Strikes Back was like track the Falcon.
True.
He let the Empire do the rest. But
true. It's all he was hired for.
Back on topic. After visiting the tree, He comes back with a branch for some reason.
Yeah, and the kid's excited. The whole tribe's excited, and now
and the lizard comes back out.
the lizard comes back out. So
And he's like,
the
I thought that was
lizard.
part of the dream.
No geckos were harmed in the filming of Boba Fett. We're happy to report.
And
So
he spends the next 10 minutes making a gaffy stick from scratch with
yes, which
help
is
from the blacksmith.
so you see, which we've been building towards, where we now think that well, he is now a member of the tribe because now we see him built. He's got a stick. He's dressing up too. They've now clothed him
His black robes.
in his robes. And now, as in many tribal societies, whether they're Arabs or in the North and South Americas, they are very communal, very tribal around fire. They have fire dances. So they have that same ideology, that storytelling. It happens with the community. What happens? They're around the fire and they start the tribal dance or tribal acceptance of Boba Fett into their tribe, into their culture, which is
we have a great
kind of yep.
Great musical number to end the episode.
So
I think this might be a good time to discuss the end credits. Like this is where we have.
I love those.
Yeah, and then
I love the artwork. Yeah,
because it's reminiscent of like the Ralph McQuarrie concept art for the original Star Wars, but it's like done in its own style. And
yeah, it's very stylized. Very stylized.
It's more how do I want to say, dreamlike?
Yeah,
it's soft. There's not hard line because a lot of the Ralph McQuarrie stuff I thought had like really hard lines. Like I'm thinking of like the C3PO one. It was like the line work was very.
It was almost if you remember like the popular science magazines from the 50s and 60s, they had a lot of like hard lines on them that they were it was much more influenced by geometry.
Mm-hmm.
And then they added some art to it. But this was, you're right, it's more on the dreamlike, it's more rounded, it's more soft shapes.
The randomness of nature, because it's like a lot of it's out nature and we don't have structured geometry in an artificial world.
Correct.
But yeah, and then I guess to continue the flashback in episode 3 or chapter 3, Boba's like, doing well with the tribe, and we see him go into town because he has a meeting with the Pikes, and he's basically, trying to, collect their money, and they're like, oh, we made a agreement with another tribe, and he's like, no, you're working through me, blah blah blah. And when he comes back, you can see the tribe has been not decimated, they were actually
massacred,
fully wiped out, and we see the same symbol that's been attacking.
Yeah, the gang graffiti of the gang symbol is painted.
So, and that pretty much takes us.
That takes us to whatever chapter 4 is going to bring next week.
Yeah.
So now, if we pause the flashback and we go to what would be present day within the storyline, what's happening now? Back to the first episode or book 1, we have Bulba now exiting the Bacta tank and taking the throne as being the daimyo of, I guess it would be Mos Espa.
They said the daimyo of Tatooine. So
okay, so if you're,
which doesn't really matter at this point because it's like there's only 3 settlements on Tatooine. So
right, so as long as you're in control of the people, then the planet's yours.
And I think by daimyo we mean like crime lord, the Godfather, whatever you want to take from it.
Yeah, I'm assuming that they took that from feudal Japan, the word terminology, because I think it has some.
I'm not sure, but
that's what I. Go ahead.
All the crime bosses are coming to pay tribute to the new daimyo because I guess because he killed Bib Fortuna in the post-credit
Correct.
scene of Mandalorian season 2. They're like,
Yes.
I guess you're in charge now.
Yeah, that's all you need to do. It's like a Klingon vessel. As long as you kill the captain, you're in like Flint. So
we see a Transdoshan who he apparently used to work for. And,
yeah, which is hilarious.
And it's like gives him like empty threats, but that's just how Transdoshans are.
That's how they talk. That's how they are.
What else? I guess the guy from the mayor's office shows up.
Mary, who's a Twi'lek, he comes in.
Heavily insulted that they're expected tribute. Both of them are expecting tributes from each other because I guess the mayor is expecting to take over. And
correct. And he's the most passive aggressive character you'll ever meet in your life. Yeah.
Talks with his arms a lot. So yeah, they basically leave on I wouldn't say okay terms because they're basically our tribute is we're gonna let you walk out of here alive.
And he's like, well, I guess I can. That's okay with me. I don't know about my boss. He might kill me. So.
And then I didn't quite understand this, but I guess 2 Gamorrean guards show up, and the protocol droid is like, I guess I don't think it's exactly a protocol droid, but I think
he's more like a steward.
Yeah, because they're like, we need a protocol droid. But anyway, they're like, oh, these 2 guards served under Jabba, and they continued to serve under Bib Fortuna. They've surrendered. Do you want to kill them? And it's like, this is like our first instance where we see like Boba Fett's not like a cold-hearted person, and he's like, you maintain loyalty throughout your masters, serve me, and you'll be treated well. So,
and that's, of course, this is like the first scene that's not a flashback that we see him kind of learn from. Now, wait a second. I've been a bounty hunter. I've been serving everybody else. Where did it get me? You know, I'm watching how all these guys are treating everybody else. They treat them like crap.
Yeah.
So it's the same idea.
I think it's funny because I just saw a meme on the internet this week. They said the Gamorreans, those 2 Gamorreans, are the children of Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy.
Mom and Dad would be proud.
So
they got picked up on E.T.'s vehicle when he was leaving.
Yeah. So what? Boba and Fennec go into town, I guess, to assert their new dominance or whatever. And
yeah. So they leave the throne with the 2 guards and what's Ming-Na's character?
Fennec Shand.
Fennec Shand. So they go.
They're collecting insurance money or
the insurance.
Money.
And I guess the first place they go is Jennifer Beals Cabana Brothel Casino.
Yeah, I think it's called Paradise, maybe.
Paradise? Okay.
Yeah. I know. I'm having flashbacks to Star Trek V, Paradise City.
I know.
And speaking of which, this is totally a side tangent. You know what really bothered me was in Star Trek V, the lettering for Paradise City is done in the Star Trek font that's only on movie posters and doesn't exist in the Star Trek universe. You know? But yeah, go back and watch it. Yeah,
that your gears in Star Trek V?
Yeah. Just
well, okay. All right.
So
but
it's like,
maybe it exists now because now you've seen it on screen?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess it's self.
So hypothetically, it depends on how you think about it, Pete.
Yeah, I guess so. But anyway, that's just a nitpick of that movie. That doesn't deserve any other nitpicks. But yeah.
Welcome to Paradise City, my dear.
So they basically go in and they're like, "Oh, are you here for pleasure or whatever? We can water down and feed your guards."
That was the best line, right? I just thought that was hilarious.
And like, should we shine your helmets? And Fennec's like, no. And Boba's like, we should do as the people, as what's customary. And then his helmet comes back full of coins, and hers is empty, which is pretty funny.
I like this, you know.
But basically informing her that, hey, Bib Fortuna's gone. I'm in charge. And she's like, oh, okay. And here you go.
Yeah, here's the same company. We're good.
And,
I like the band. It was very reminiscent of both Jabba and the Cantina when we had Tatooine before.
And I was like, are those supposed to be the same characters from the original trilogy?
Well, let's just say it this way. I would find it very hard to believe that the same band members,
Yeah.
the exact same keyboardist, the clarinetist,
because
the same.
It's like the Biff musicians from the Cantina from the first movie broke up, and he's like, oh shoot. And then
one of them has
the
blue element.
Yeah, that's Max Rebo.
Hey, do you want to start a band? We'll go play Jabba's place this weekend. And he runs into 3 Cabana girls, and they start singing for him. That's the next television show, the Cabana Band.
Max Rebo and the Biff musicians.
I'm getting a band back together.
You can see Max Rebo with sunglasses.
Both them putting the sunglasses on. Oh, that. They steal the Millennium Falcon.
And they just crash it through Mos Eisley, just crashing through the storefronts.
And Lando pops out somewhere and goes, "What did you do to my ship?" All right, tangent number 2.
And instead of Illinois Nazis, they run into stormtroopers remnants.
Or Order 1.
Yeah, they're just standing on a street on Tatooine. And they're like they're swearing allegiance to this Palpatine, who's dead, but he's the eternal.
The eternal Palpatine.
Yeah.
He's a
They're like, we don't
glowing
have time for
hologram.
this, and they just speed right through them, and they all have to jump off.
Oh. I'd rather watch that than half the stuff they have out now.
Oh, okay. So,
Alec Kurtzman, eat your heart out.
oh man, don't say that man's name. So what? I think next they go see the mayor finally, right?
They finally go see. No, they're on the way to see the mayor when they're attacked.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So they're attacked by unnamed assassins, and Boba Fett gets wounded.
Space ninjas.
Wait a second. No,
you're right.
Don't the twins show up first?
Nope.
That's the second. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Boba gets attacked, and Fennec, is that her name?
Yeah.
Ming-Na's character goes off, and of course, Boba's, don't kill him. I want a prisoner. And of course, they go off alive. He goes back off in the back of the tank, and then that she captures one, but then that's when, of course, episode 1 ends.
Right.
Book 1. But then we open up to book 2. He's, of course, out of the back of the tank, and then he's getting ready to interrogate this guy, where we're going to call him the steward droid for all intents and purposes, because he's managing the affairs, not translating.
Maybe next episode we'll figure out what his name is.
Maybe we'll figure out what he is. But then he says that he's a Nightwind.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. The Nightwind.
A member of the Nightwind, and he goes, he's never going to talk, sir, my lord, or whatever he says. And he goes, well, maybe he'll talk to the Rancor. And of course, they drop him, and he goes in the Rancor pit, and you're waiting for it. He's the mayor, and of course, it reveals there's no Rancor anymore.
Yeah, because I was like, this is dumb. I'm like,
this is so. That's it can't be. So that at that point we've now he's going to after the mayor again, right?
Yeah. They finally go to the mayor's office without.
So they finally go to the mayor's office,
They break
and
in.
of course they break in, and you see this. The mayor's talking very sly, not very direct. He's up to something already. You can tell.
He's an Ithorian,
Correct.
and they can't speak English. They just make guttural throat noises.
But he has this thing on his to translate for him.
Yeah, which he's voiced by Robert Rodriguez, I believe.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Producer and director of Episode 3.
Episode 3.
Yeah.
Well, so this is the point where Jabba's twin cousins are.
The mayor basically says, "I'm not behind this. You should go back to paradise, and you'll see who's truly behind this."
Yeah. So that's what he alludes to, but doesn't say it. And then that's when he goes back to paradise and talks to Jennifer Beals' character, who I don't remember her name. And what is she? I forget. She doesn't care one way or another who she pays. Is essentially what she.
Right, because she's like, "Oh, you haven't heard. The twins have returned." And
that's when we get introduced to that, and then we walk out of paradise and we see a very familiar sight. We see two huts sitting on, a procession, and a giant Wookiee.
They call it their litter. What carries them around.
Their litter.
And meow. This is where I got confused slightly, because they called them the twins, and then the one, because we don't get names, I don't think, and the one refers to the other as his sister. And I thought at one point, I know this is me being hypocritical of reading Star Wars books, at one point I thought the Hutts were hermaphrodites and asexual, and I'm like, I didn't really thought they had a gender.
Maybe they're more like amphibians on Earth, that they can change their sexes.
Yeah.
Because I do remember in, I think, the Clone Wars television show, they showed the Hutts, and there were males and females.
Yeah, and technically, I guess Episode 1 has a female Hutt behind Jabba.
Correct.
Or we just assumed it was female.
I assumed the same thing that you did. But yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Nerds being nerdier. That's what we're doing.
Basically, the Hutts are like, yeah, we're taking over. We have claim to this. And Boba's like, nope, I killed Bib Fortuna. It's my empire now. And they're like, you're going to have to kill me if you want it. And they're like, bloodshed is bad for business.
Yeah, very Ferengi thing to say.
And then the Wookiee comes out. I think his name is Chrysanthemum.
Okay.
This very big Wookiee, black fur, which I think he would be really upset being on Tatooine with all that fur and being.
Oh yeah, I would be. Yeah.
And the Hutts give a not a hollow threat. They're just they're like.
It's blatant.
Yeah. And Fennec, she mentions, well, we can't kill them. We'll need permission. And that implies like a mafia thing. It's like
correct.
You can't just kill a crime boss in the mafia, or you'll have the whole mob coming down on you.
Right. And it also implies that there's more sophistication behind the Hutts and their empire, along with how the other syndicates in the Red Sun, how they all play. Mm-hmm. So we're probably going to get into that more into the future of the show.
And I think that pretty much moves us into Chapter 3.
That moves us into Chapter 3.
And that starts off with someone coming into the throne room. Or, I guess the droid, the steward, gives us a little bit background of like, oh, this is what happened after the sail barge was destroyed. There was a power vacuum. Bib Fortuna took over, but really didn't do anything. It was just maintaining it.
Yeah, and there were 3 different groups.
Yeah, so I forget what the groups were, but basically the mayor was taking
most of the power.
Exactly. Yeah. And then we have someone coming in. Oh, go ahead.
was you were going to bring up the character that came in. That's Stephen Root, who is a great character actor. He played the Klingon captain in Unification in Star Trek The Next Generation.
Oh, okay.
It may not be what you're used to on a Starfleet ship.
Quite nice, thank you.
Okay.
And he played, of course, Bill Dotrief in King of the Hill. He did the voice and several other voices, but one of my favorite character actors out there. Of course, he plays the disgruntled merchant that enters into Boba Fett's palace.
And he's like, Don Corleone, I need your help on this day of your daughter's wedding. I'm like, I got people stealing water from me. And he's like, all right, we'll go settle this and get this all squared away. And then,
so essentially, he's a watermonger. He sells water because it's a desert planet, and a gang of punk kids is stealing or owes him money. And when Boba Fett and his entourage get there, he sees kids who are starving, and he goes, isn't there work? Work? What are you talking about? We want work. There isn't any. So he's going through, and Boba Fett realizes rather quickly that these kids are being exploited. And as crime boss, he's going to take care of that.
That the water is being charged at exorbitant rates that can't be afforded. Any work they can get, they can't afford anything. So, and then I've seen a lot of people refer to this as the Power Rangers gang because they're so bright and shiny colors, and I'm like, this doesn't fit in Star Wars. It's so bright and shiny. And then someone said, well, if you look at them as like gearheads, they would really take care of their speeders and everything.
Yeah, they would. It's like, and that was probably like one of the little. It was an odd.
Yeah, in high school, remember everyone who had a Ford Focus in the parking lot, and they put a spoiler on it, lowered the rims, and painted it lime green. It's like, congratulations on taking the cheapest car and making it look like trying to imitate like American muscle. But
yeah, it's wonderful. Great idea. Now they have the Harley Davidson Galaxy 2200 speeder. That's
they were Vespas. And
of
I'll
course,
tell you why later. But so basically, he recruits them he's like, "Come work for me. You'll be treated well and paid well."
And if the watermonger's not too happy, but Boba Fett says, here's your money and lower your prices or we're going to have a problem. And of course, he exits along with the new gang that's going to work for him, the team.
I think after some flashbacks, we find out that Chrysanthemum has broken into the palace and attacks Boba.
So right now, Boba is having... Anytime that Boba Fett has a flashback at this point, he's in the Bacta tank.
Yes.
So what we are seeing is his dreams in the Bacta tank as flashbacks. So he's in the Bacta tank right now, and the Wookiee comes and pulls him out of the Bacta tank, and he's like, whoa. And all of a sudden, then they start a fight. And of course, you find out why Wookiees are pretty badass.
I thought they were going to rip some arms out of the Power Ranger sockets.
I kind of thought that was going to happen since they're robotic anyway. But truth be told, they fight. They get into the throne room, and Fennec drops him into the
the Rancor pit.
And that brings us to now. Of course, you see another moment where you see Boba Fett's compassion. Hey, put him in my Bacta tank, one of the injured Gamorreans. And then he gets visited.
Or before that, they're waiting for. They're basically having dinner, and Fennec's like trying to get him to eat, and he's like, "Everyone's waiting for my next move." And she's like, take your time and just let it happen,
And the other thing was, you could tell that he's not used to this opulence.
Right.
He's not, he's not like the Futurama opulence, but oh my, he's not doing that. He's a doer. He's a go after. He's a worker. He's not the,
Right.
So you're seeing him there trying to adjust to this new lifestyle. And Fennec, she's enjoying it. He isn't, though. And then that's the point where the steward droid says, "Hey, the twins are here," and they have a little showdown. But the twins are like, "Listen, have it. We don't really. It's not for us."
They're like, it's been promised to someone else, and we don't want to deal with this.
No.
We're going back to the home world, and we're sorry we sent Chrysanthemum to come kill you. And here's a gift.
So we get to see Danny Trejo, who's one of my favorite actors, as now the Rancor Wrangler, and a new Rancor. And then at this point, yeah. And then we see Boba give back the Wookiee to the Hutts, and they're like, "Yeah, we're done with him." Another act of compassion.
I don't think he gave it to the Hutts. I think the Hutts left him behind, and he just let them walk away.
Yeah, well, that was what I was getting at. He set him free, and then that was when I remembered it must be pretty, in the desert with all the hair. That was now he has to run back to wherever civilization is. So
yeah, I thought he was going to just hang out at the palace and be like, whatever.
I kind of thought that too. Hey, maybe in the next book chapter we'll see him come back, and he'll be like, "Oh, hey, I want to work for you. You seem pretty, all right."
And then, Danny Trejo gives us some back to the Rancors.
Of what Rancors that the first person they see they imprint on. Like that's almost like a mother and a child type thing. And like you feel bad, like it's like a puppy almost at this point where it's like, oh, he's all depressed and sad, and he's talking through all this. But and of course, he takes the blinders off the Rancor, Danny Trejo's character, and sees Boba Fett and gets the imprint. At that point, I'm still kind of, did the Hutts trap Boba Fett? Is the Rancor at some point going to kill him? Like, is there like a secret behind? So I'm still not sure if there was more going on there or not. But that's the point where Boba Fett and Fennec are like, we're gonna go see the mayor. This enough is enough. We've been disrespected enough. And we get there, and of course the assistant mayor, the Twi'lek, he's nervous as you. We have a very complicated and complex schedule. We don't think. And of course, let me go get him. And he locks the door, and then we get the speeder chase.
The worst chase scene ever captured on screen. I felt like my grandmother walking down the street could have caught up to that speeder.
Hey! Get the bikes!
Where is he?
He's with the Pikes.
He's working with the Pikes. He's with the Pikes.
And then that's the point where they start following and watching the Pikes to see what they're up to. And that, of course, brings us to the end of chapter 3.
Yeah, in the present, because of course we get the...
Of course. And for our intensive purposes, we thought that going through it in that way, doing flashbacks first and then doing present would be a lot less confusing for explanation purposes. But I think they did rely very heavily on flashbacks to give you an idea of where Boba Fett's mind and where his driving points were, because, as you stated before, he was just a guy in armor.
Mm-hmm. So I think we have 4 chapters left, and I think we're going to plan on doing the next 2 together and then the last 2 together.
Yep.
I think that's going to fit well. And do you have any predictions on what's going to happen next, or do you think it's wild card at this point?
I would have to say where it looks like they're going is that they're the gang that he's following in the flashbacks and the syndicate have something to do with each other, and that's where at some point we're going to hit headway. Of course, we're going to find out how Fennec gets into the whole mix. So I think that that's where we're headed. I would like to see some other elements brought in, but prediction-wise, you're right. It's a wild card at this point. The only thing I think is for sure is the flashbacks and the present are going to tie in at some point.
Yeah. So, well, thanks for joining us on our first episode of the new year, and we will be seeing you again shortly. Have a great one.